Welcome to the HU Move Makers podcast, where we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and making moves in Howard culture. Welcome to the HU Move Maker podcast, where we highlight Howard folks that are making moves and changing culture. Today, we have a very special guest on the show, fellow Chicagoan, Howard University political science, Howard University Juris Doctorate, School of Law, two-time Howard grad, former Obama administration special advisor to the Assistant Secretary of Civil Rights at the USDA. A lot of syllables in there. Former Director of Communications and Outreach at the City of Chicago's Office of the Inspector General. All these syllables. That's a lot of important stuff. Former Executive Director for Growing Home Incorporated. Well, let's talk about the most recent appointment appointed by the Governor of the state of Illinois. Man, Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer. We could have used you at Howard back in the day because it was cannabis everywhere. But we got Danielle Perry. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
For sure, man. So, Danielle, man, you hit the ground running. I remember you got to Chicago. How long ago did you move back to Chicago?
I always tell people I moved here when Trump became president, basically. That's how I remember it. So I came on Valentine's Day, 2017.
I remember when you got back to Chicago, but more specifically, I remember when you started your newest position, your former position at the Growing Home. That was in Inglewood, right?
Yep.
So you started at Inglewood. I think you hit me up about fundraising and some things you was trying to get done. Some time go past. I'm minding my business, reading the newspaper. I see Danielle Perry. I'm like, I know that name. This can't be the same person, you know. So you Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer, and they said czar. That's what they called you, czar.
My daddy, every time he calls me, he goes, "Hey, weed czar."
What is that? Can you tell me what is that?
So definitely the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer for the state of Illinois. My job is really to regulate the cannabis industry itself. So I always tell people in other states, cannabis is in one agency. They have like a commission or a bureau, and that's called a centralized plan. But Chicago is decentralized in the sense that all these different government agencies do some little piece of the pie about cannabis. So when they wrote the law, they put one position in there, and it's to manage all those different agencies and what they do with cannabis. And it's called the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer. And that's me. I just got appointed. I'm not Senate approved yet, so I don't want to say anything too crazy on this podcast and not get approved. Wow. But yeah. And my number one thing I'm supposed to do is a disparity study about the industry itself to see if people of color are really just going to get in, and not even people of color, people who were most impacted by the war on drugs. So I think that's a good place to be in right now, to come in and to know that whatever we put out will help Illinois to be at the forefront, to have the most equity-centric law out there, and that I will be a part of making that even better. So I'm excited about the opportunity. It's heavy on my head, but I think we can make it happen.
So let me dissect this a little bit. So you said one of the things that you're doing is to help. So you're doing a study to see how people have been affected by like past marijuana laws who may have gotten like law.
Whether or not the decisions that were made in the law around the points to get applications and stuff like that, whether that really worked to get new people into the industry. So if they decided that 500 licenses to sell cannabis were going to go out, the first 100 went to people who were already in the medical industry. So instead of just giving the other 390 or 400 out based on the point system that they had in the law, it was kind of thoughtful. They only gave out 75, or we're going to give out 75. And then they put this study right here. And the study will say, let's look at the medical industry, let's look at the adult and the ones we've given out, and let's see, did it work? Was it successful? Did we get people who are from communities hardest hit from the war on drugs? Did we get people who were previously convicted or arrested for marijuana crimes, or their family members? That was who it was supposed to help. So my study should say, did that work? And how can we make it better? Because right now, you're looking at a medical industry where there are 0 majority owners who are people of color. And so if in fact, after this round, the 75 that's happening now, we want to see what that looks like. Will there be people of color who become majority owners? It's looking like, based on the application pool and the lottery, that probably will happen. So will that happen? What does it look like? And then how can we make that even better? And number one, no matter what, we will likely be the leader in the nation for the most diverse market if we make this happen with these first 75. Then the next 100 and the 100 after that, each round will make it better and better. So my job is to make it better. That's a good place to be in, I think. And I'm new, so we'll see what happens. But my plan is to bring a diverse group, a collective together to do this study. So not just market, analysts and stuff like that, but people who understand, like you said, the historical things that have happened, the barriers that we have to capital and investors, stuff like that. I want people to look at this from a holistic approach so we can see how we can make it better.
So if I want to apply for a license, like what do I need to do? How are people vetted? Is there a certain like net worth, a certain type of experience running business that I need? Like what are some things I should consider?
Of course, Josh, come out the gate asking me questions about a job I started 2 days ago. But so at this point, I would say, you can look on, depends on what you want to apply for, right? The Department of Agriculture would be where you would go if you wanted to apply for a craft grow license or an infuser license or a transportation license. And then IDFPR, the Department of Finance and Professional Regulation, that's where you go if you want to apply for a dispensary. You can get that application, you can go through it. I mean, you and I both know there's a level of capital you need to start any business. So if you're asking me the details of what somebody would need to start a business like this, or at least just put the application in, I think it's similar to any business. The only problem is nationally it's not legal. So there are challenges and hurdles I think anybody going into a cannabis business will have. But the application process, you can literally go on those websites and pull them up. I don't know if the new kid on the block should answer the questions of all the ins and outs of the industry.
Well, this is for quite some time, it's been an ongoing conversation about marijuana becoming legal. And I mean, this has been going on forever. And then people talking about the health benefits of marijuana. And right now we're finally at the gate of like, all right, it's here. There are actual businesses out there that are selling marijuana. I guess the government is just trying to figure out the profitability and who's going to make money off of it and all of that. So it's a lot of questions, man, that people want answered. I know we talked about this a little bit. There's always this thing of, when you think about who's the war on drugs, that whole deal. And I know you're not a politician. I mean, the war on drugs probably happened when you was like 5, or whatever. We were, in the 80s, that was like a coined phrase. But as we fast forward to now, and to think about how many people were like locked up as a result of nonviolent crimes, primarily selling drugs, and they're from impoverished areas where they may feel that was their only way to bring in income. And you fast forward to 2020, it's legal. And even if you get caught with marijuana, probably the most thing you get is some type of fine, or it gets thrown away or something like that. Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. What is the state doing to make sure that these communities that were impacted in the most negative ways are getting some equity when it comes to these licenses?
Yeah, so I think to answer your question, the last word you said was licenses. I think that's what people think about, but the law had three parts. The first part is like you said, the licenses and the market, the industry itself. But I think the second and third parts are the ones that I think can really do some repairing. So the second part of the law was about the grant program. Every 25% of the taxes that come in, we're putting into a grant program where nonprofits and organizations in the communities that were hardest hit can apply for. I think the application process has ended, and those grants should come out hopefully this year. And you will see nonprofits that have been doing the work in those communities receiving grant money to help build those communities, give opportunities. I think they're mostly around youth development, workforce development, things that can really help those communities grow. And I think one of the things that make me unique in this job is that 30 days ago, I was running one of those nonprofits in Inglewood, helping people find jobs, mostly people who were formerly incarcerated. I ran a job development program using urban agriculture. I think that uniquely makes me extremely passionate about making this happen. So one, the grant program, and you already know, you live in Illinois, we're making a lot of money from cannabis. So 25% of the taxes going to those communities is helpful. The third part, which I really think needs to happen, is the expungements. That's the third part of the law. I think we've already expunged 100,000 people who had these charges, in the state. But there were 700,000 that could be, and so we have to keep working to get those expungements done. And that's another thing. When I was at Grow at Home, we really focused on. We partnered with the Cabrini Green Legal Aide to help people who were in our program get their records expunged or sealed. And to me, when you talk to people who graduated from our program, they would say, that's the game changer. You can help me find a job, but the thing that's going to help me be able to continue to move up in my career is getting this record expunged. So I think when you look at the law and you look at what Illinois is doing holistically, not just the market and getting into the market, which I think they're on the right path to doing some good stuff with diversifying the market, but these grants to community and the expungement piece, that's what you can do. And I think that's what's going to repair, not repair everything, but definitely a start to seeing the money that's coming in from cannabis actually touch these neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's important. You've been on the South Side, and to have reading the paper, man, and seeing it, they call you, this is Crane Chicago business. They called you the marijuana czar. Am I pronouncing that right?
You're pronouncing it right.
Man, the marijuana czar. So, you basically, you're appointed by government, and this is a totally new, industry, a totally new legal industry. How does it feel to be given that type of responsibility, at such a young age, a new industry? A lot of your decision making is going to affect how things are done probably 10, 20, 30 years from now.
You know what? And this, I love that you're doing this podcast, Josh, because Howard prepares you for moments like this. I think in so many different ways. One, the one thing that I got from Howard that prepares me for this moment is that your life and what you do, your purpose is so much bigger than just you. It's about other people. And my life and the story you told, you could say the titles, but at the end of the day, it was about helping people and serving people and putting people at the forefront. So I know this is a huge moment in history. I know that, Illinois making this law and putting in points that can help community, people who live in the community get these licenses, putting in this grant program, putting in the expungement, all of that is huge. But for me to come in and write a study that could make it even better, it means that people will use this as a model as other states are thinking about, legalizing and thinking about how they diversify their market, thinking about how they make impact in their community. So I know it's a big deal to be 35 and to have this kind of on my head, but also that feeling makes you go even harder because you could really change not just this industry. You and I both know, living in Chicago, that most people, when you think about procurement, how long have we all been fighting for Black and brown people and businesses to get contracts with government, the city, the state, the county? That's why they have, minority and women business percentages that you have to have when you get a contract or you put in a bid. And you and I both know it's usually 5%, 10%. So to see these licenses move to the lottery phase and 21 businesses get in the lottery and 13 of them be people of color who are majority owners, I mean, you can see that's not ideal, but that's a big jump. The cannabis industry right now has 0% majority owners who are people of color. So to move to a lottery where 13 of the 21 people in it are majority black owned, majority Latino owned, that's a great big step.
I mean, what's to stop me and like my boys from just getting a brick and mortar and doing that?
That was one of, I've said this a couple of times, but I just started. And that's one of the questions I asked about enforcement and how we go after people and regulate that. That's one of the questions I think I will continue to push about the enforcement of businesses that are not licensed by the state. But I mean, anybody who does anything illegal, you asking me an obvious question.
Yeah.
That's no different than the doughboy on the corner. Y'all just got professional with it. It's still the illicit market. And that's something that we don't want to see. And, I think about alcohol a lot since I've taken this job. I think about the fact that we don't see people bootlegging alcohol or selling you hooch out of their house, really. And so there was a point when there was an illegal substance that we made legal. Now you can go to Benny's or wherever else and buy alcohol. I think this industry years from now we'll get to that point. But as long as it's federally illegal, it's gonna be a process. But I think you and I will be of the age at some point where we'll look back on this and think like, man, it used to be so hard to get a dispensary or to sell this. And I think our kids and maybe our grandkids will not see the same.
If I was locked up for selling marijuana and now it's legal, I'm highly pissed. Like I'm almost feeling like I could sue the state or sue whoever makes these decisions. That's one group. The other group is, people that are very conservative, people that feel like marijuana is a gateway drug, and now the state is going to tax it, and they may feel like, man, you're legalizing marijuana, that's going to introduce kids to the next high or whatever. How, I guess you could answer the first question first. Like how is the state dealing with people who, who've been saying marijuana should have been legal from the jump, and maybe they've been locked up or, members of their families have been locked up and they feel like they want something special back from the state.
I think you and I are talking about it. It's new for me, right? I started this job less than 30 days ago. So I think this is something the state has been dealing with for years when they were writing the law. When you say cannabis it's really Toy Hutchinson, a state senator who was a part of the group that wrote this law. When they were doing that, I know that's what they were experiencing. People coming on both sides and having those conversations and getting to the point where they wrote the law. Now here you are about to start awarding licenses, and now that's coming up again. People feeling like it didn't go far enough. I think there will always be critics, and there have been for years, is my point. I think the answer to those criticisms was the grant program that goes into the community, was the expungements for folks. I also think, I keep saying this study, but I think if we put out this study and it says, we need to create an incubator program so that person who sold and was so good at selling in the illicit market can figure out a way to get into the business so we can help them get into entrepreneurial opportunities in cannabis. If that's what comes from the study, then I think that creates an opportunity for them in a bigger way. So I honestly think this law is an answer to the critics, and this study can help us make that even better, to give even better solutions.
Okay. So what about the other part? You went to Emmanuel Christian, right?
Yeah.
So you went to
I know
Catholic, conservative schools, and even though Illinois is a blue state, I mean, it's still, I feel like it's conservative. A lot of Illinois is conservative, and everybody, of course, it generates income, it generates opportunities for people. Well, I heard you talk about the grant program in the communities, but how do you guys, how are you dealing with, this is going to be a legal drug, like that stigma of it still being called a drug. And now when I turn 18 or whatever, it's going to be readily available. And a lot of people view marijuana as being a gateway drug.
Yeah, I think, and like I said, I'm 30 days in, but I can already tell, I think one of the biggest things we need to do is education and communication, is getting out there, messages around all the benefits from cannabis. I think about my own life. My family is kind of religious. My dad's like the guy who sends the Bible text every morning to everybody in the family. One of my aunts, she's a military vet. She spent so many years in the military, has all this chronic pain, and can barely walk. Super young, but can barely walk. And I talked to her about cannabis, and she's like, "Oh, I would never do that." I think when I've been to a dispensary recently, last week I went to a dispensary, and the manager gave me a tour. And he had tears in his eyes telling me about how he has seen patients come in, medical patients, in wheelchairs, could barely speak, could barely move their limbs, and now they walk in the front door. And I just looked at him and I was like, even taking this job, I didn't even think about how this is really medicine for so many people. I remember going to a conference last year about cannabinoids and talking about how this was a legal plant for many years in the United States. And it has helped so many people. It's a tremendous medical benefit, and it really isn't a gateway drug.
What would you consider a failure in your role?
If I don't make it to the study, like right now, because the licenses don't seem like they're going to shake out the way people want, they want to shut the whole process down. So if I never write the study, if there's no market to even analyze, if they don't make any real changes based on the study, or if the study doesn't land the way I really want, I would be disappointed. But at the end of the day, like I told you, every day I'm there, I bring my voice, I bring the people I worked for in Inglewood with me. So I'm going to make every change I can, even if I don't get to the study. But I really believe I will. I think the process at some point will play itself out. Honestly, I think we could change it up and just do a study on the medical industry. If you did a study on the medical industry, the answer is going to be there's zero minority. There's zero people. It's the same people making big money, and it's worth changing. So I think I could get creative within the position I have, but a failure could be if I don't even get there or if it doesn't really change anything. But I'm going to work really hard to make it happen.
So are you communicating with the governor on a regular basis?
So the governor has a senior advisor on cannabis, and that's Toy Hutchinson. And she really is the cannabis czar. She's been doing this for years. I communicate mostly with her, but I will brief the governor. Like I said a million times, I'm super new, but I will, especially once the study gets started, I definitely will be briefing the governor on that and be in communication with the governor about the changes that I think we should suggest and recommend.
Okay, so right now the study hasn't started, so I can't ask you about changes and
right. Yeah, I
things
mean,
of that
what
nature.
we're doing now, you had a great suggestion. I'm going to take it, and I was already moving in that direction. How I even build the team to do the study is important. And so talking about, I have been thinking about people who were formerly incarcerated, who had tried to apply and maybe didn't, or who did apply and it didn't really work out for them, or it was too challenging. But what you made me think about that I hadn't quite thought about were people who didn't apply, who are kind of in the market themselves, just not in the legal one. So
absolutely.
Just
They already got a built-in infrastructure already, so it would be great to help those people go legit, you know what I mean? Because generational wealth, is a real thing. When you look at these alcohol companies, whether it's like Anheuser-Busch or who, whatever, Hennessy, these are people's last names. It's no reason why that can't happen in the marijuana industry, in our community, right. The Mercer brand of marijuana can live on, forever. So, and we always hear about how athletes use it for pain and people use it for stress. And, I was introduced to marijuana in high school, and I didn't do it because my mom was, she's real conservative, was always on me. So it wasn't until like my senior year of high school, I think all our friends, we got together and we like smoking. Then when I got to Howard, I realized like, man, this whole time, like everybody's been smoking weed, like the smart kids, like everybody, like it's really, obviously anything you overindulge in is bad, but it's not as bad as, you know, society made it seem. So what are some other, what other businesses do you see, um, being able to benefit from the legalization of marijuana? Because if I'm somebody that, okay, maybe I can't get the license, maybe I got a checker history, but there is an opportunity out there for me to do, what are some things that people should look at?
Josh, I think about like you're such a businessman for thinking about that, because the first thing that came to my mind is when I was little, one of my dad's friends left his job and like started a bakery. And everybody talked so much stuff about him for doing this. And he ended up being one of the main people who made bread for McDonald's and became a millionaire. And
Wow.
I think, I think everybody's really obsessed about getting a dispensary license or a growing license.
Because
But
it's sexy. It's sexy,
yeah, because it seems like the smart thing to do. But like, I think, Josh, you're such a business guy, because to me, that's the move. The move would be to start a security company or something, or make the little plastic or one of the bottles that the stuff goes in. Like any business has ancillary or, just other businesses that they have to work with. Why wouldn't you be that business? And you could start that today and you don't need no license, I think nobody wants to hear me say that, because that's like, oh, you don't want me to have a license. But the truth is, there's value in that. And because you have a business mind, you thought about that to even ask me that. But I think that is the move. I went to a cultivation center last week, and everybody had on a uniform, because it's a very regulated thing. They don't want cannabis all over them, so they all had on they even made me put one on. And in my head I was thinking, I need that, you can make that.
Yeah.
And she had a little labeling for all her stuff. I think that's true for any business, and I think we all don't think about that. But if you went into the dispensary tomorrow and you just looked around, I think you could easily see what are other things you could do other than waiting to see if you could be one of the 75 licenses that you could start today. And that's on the money, Josh, for real.
When I look at your resume, JD, so you're a lawyer, political science, USDA, the Obama administration, executive director with Growing Home. I gotta ask, like this interview process, this appointment to be the czar. And when I think of the czar, I mean, what is your experience with marijuana? I mean, did they ask you? They say, hey, did you smoke weed? Did you smoke weed? Can you roll a blunt? I mean, cause you a czar, so you gotta represent us. You from the South Side. You from Howard, you from Chicago, so I know that this is just, there's got to be some stuff missing from this resume that that makes you the czar.
You're so
Is
funny.
that accurate? Or
I'm gonna say again, the czar is Toy Hutchinson, right? She's been doing this a long time. I'm the newbie. I think Crane's got it wrong on that. I think they should have put New Kid on the Block in cannabis. But I will say, and when I was thinking about talking to you, it's just something about how God sets stuff up in your life. And you were talking about appointment processes. So I'll start with the Obama administration appointment process. When I first went to an interview at the White House, they asked me what I was interested in. And I was like, oh, civil rights and education. And I was so passionate and excited. And when I got the call about agriculture, civil rights, I was like, I don't know nothing about agriculture. Like, why would I want to do that?
that's real. I mean, that's needed in our neighborhood, though.
Yeah, but I did my first
hypertension. They say hypertension is like the silent killer.
Yeah, and I didn't. My first reaction wasn't that. It was like egg. But when I got into that job, and I traveled, I don't know if you know, but I traveled the country running a initiative on school and community gardens. And I saw how our communities were absolutely food insecure in a way that was baffling to me. I mean, there were tribal communities where they were buying their groceries in the gas station. There were no grocery store for 100 miles. We're driving 100 miles. We ain't seen a grocery store yet. We put gardens from LA to Philly, from South Dakota to, I mean, we were everywhere. And it was just so blatant to me. I learned a lot about agriculture. I learned a lot about food insecurity in the city. I learned about soil, hydroponics. Like, it was really a study in agriculture. And then, not even 2 years later, I'm running a nonprofit where we have the only USDA certified organic high production farm in the city of Chicago. I'm literally working on a farm. There was never a day in law school that I thought I'd be working on a farm every day. So, 2 years later, being interviewed to manage cannabis for the state, I have done agriculture now on a federal level and in the city of Chicago, in a community that really needs it. I understand how growing works, what hydroponics works, which means growing indoors. So you never know what God is setting you up for.
Do you have access to like the best marijuana if you want to just like smoke out? Like, if
you are not gonna let go of this marijuana thing.
So if I want to come over your crib and do some edibles, you probably got the best stuff in your house, don't you?
I will say I have no extra access to anything that you don't have.
Come on, Danielle. I know you got some good stuff. We could talk about that later.
I have been to a lot of really cool dispensaries just in the past few weeks, and been able to see how they grow cannabis from seed all the way to the end. And I was in there when they were packaging up caramels and chocolate. So very cool. I mean,
Are you allowed to sample and taste and are you allowed to do any of that?
I would never do that any government job I have, even if
it's probably something that you can do, but y'all don't like.
If somebody offered me water in a government job, I would say no, thank you.
Oh, wow, Danielle, you're such a politician.
Yeah, look,
such a politician with these answers.
I took the ethics training. I'm good. I'm really good. But I would like to, I was telling my cousin, I would like to take my aunt to a dispensary seriously and show her that you can get different things. And maybe if I go with her, I might, we'll see. We'll see.
True. We'll, as everything becomes more socially acceptable and official, I mean, I'm sure it's gonna come a time where a person in your position or a person in your office is gonna have to, if I came to your office, I wouldn't be surprised if it smelled like marijuana. I'm sure that day is gonna come. Maybe not in Chicago, but in more progressive places like a Colorado or something like that. I'm sure the Danielle in Colorado probably has a blunt at her desk, But anyway, man, so where you from what part of Chicago are you from?
South suburbs. I grew up
in
Flossmoor.
Flossmoor. So you from Flossmoor. You went to HF, and for those of you who don't know, Flossmoor is like, 25, 35 minutes south of Chicago.
Yep.
But yeah, Flossmoor produces a decent amount of people from Flossmoor went to Howard. I mean, every year it's like 1, 2, or 3 that come to Howard. My cousin, I don't know if you know Brock Horn. Yeah, that's my cousin. So yeah, he went to Howard, and he went to HF. So how did you find Howard?
My aunt went to Hampton. My mom has one sister, and she went to Hampton. So she definitely exposed me to Black colleges. My parents went to Oberlin, and they're more like, Harvard, Yale, Princeton type people. So they exposed me to those type of schools. And my aunt she literally took me to Howard's campus. My mom, I don't know if you know this, but my mom's from DC. So Howard's a part of my life. I grew up going to DC all the time. My grandmother lives in Oxon Hill, like right outside of Southeast. The aunt I'm talking about, she lives in Alexandria. All my cousins live there. So I grew up going to Howard, seeing it, and being there. I can't say it was my number one. I was really kind of, when I was young, obsessed with Georgetown. That was my number one. Wanted to be in DC and study politics.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Howard was kind of like, I know most of the other people you interview are like, Howard was my number one, but that wasn't me. That wasn't me. But
So what made you want to go to Georgetown over Howard?
you know, it's a silly reason, but I went to a summer camp in high school for like little nerdy politician kids called Junior Statesmen of America. And it was
So
at
you was a
Georgia.
Republican. You was a Republican.
No. We had our own little black caucus at this camp, little Democrat side. No, I was a strong Democrat back then for real. And it was at Georgetown, and I think I was just young, and I just felt like that college was gonna be that camp for 4 years, and I just was like obsessed.
Yeah, I mean Georgetown is a beautiful campus too, and growing up, when you think about Georgetown and the brand of Georgetown, I mean it's a great brand from the basketball teams that they've had to the law school that they have. So it's not a bad choice. So you get to Howard though. Now you come from good stock. I mean, you was telling me earlier, about the cotillion,
The links.
the links. You telling about the links
before this.
So yeah, you come from good stock. So Howard is not to have Howard as a backup choice is great. I mean, that says something about where you come from. What year did you come to Howard?
I was 02. I came. I was in the band, so I came a week early.
Oh, okay. So you was in the band. Okay.
Yeah.
So you was there when I was there. I came out in 03. So what was it like when you got to Howard?
Man, well, being in the band is different. I mean, you probably don't know, but you have to come a little bit early. You don't get to do all the cool stuff y'all get to do, the campus pals and all, the freshman week. You don't get to do none of that. You got to be at band practice every day. So I really didn't get that like true Howard experience until I got out of the band. I had like a unfortunate accident with the band. It was I think growing up in the Midwest, like we grew up in Chicago, I didn't know it was going to be intense. And I always tell people drumline came out after I got out of the band. So I didn't have an idea. I just wanted to play my little trumpet. I didn't think it was going to be as physical and as physically challenging. So once I got out of the band, though, and I got to really experience Howard, and I was pretty young. I was 17, so I couldn't even go to like 2K9 or nothing. But
wow. So you 17 when you got to Howard?
Yeah, I skipped a grade when I was little, so I didn't even
wow.
learn.
So you came to Howard on scholarship?
Yeah, so that was another reason why I got out of the band. If they ain't paying your way,
smart.
Why would I stay in the band and get my butt beat for free? So yeah,
So it was that tough. It was that tough being in the band.
Yeah, and I played the trumpet. It was a very male dominated.
You was exhausted.
Yeah,
damn.
I was the only girl. It was hard.
So how many years were you in the band?
I didn't even make it to homecoming. I was like, I can't do this. It ain't working.
Fuck this. you probably hitting the blunt like, man, I'm gonna be the czar. They got me fucked up. I'm gonna be the czar.
In the band, every section is like a little sorority or fraternity of their own, and so
really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. When I got to Howard, man, I did not. And I'm from Chicago. Band is like, it's not big here, maybe at certain schools, but as a culture, band culture is not big in Chicago. Certain schools it might be big, but I remember going to Howard, like, okay, that's the band, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But I remember like talking to some people I met at Howard, like who are from the South. They're like, oh, the band it's like being on the basketball team. It was like a big thing. And I remember being at a basketball game where I don't know if I was in front of Fine Arts, and I had like cut in front through the band line.
Oh, no, you
didn't. Somebody like low key like pushed me, or I don't know if I was trying to say what's up to somebody who was in the band, and they was trying to like tell me on the low like you can't do. I'm like, yo, what's up? Like I didn't understand. Like I had no idea. Luckily, it didn't go down a horrible path, but I definitely remember somebody being like physically moving me out of the way.
It's intense. It was too much for me. I got hurt actually pretty bad. And
damn.
Raven, my roommate freshman year, and she's from Chicago. We were in the Lynx debutante ball together. I was telling you, and Raven says she remembers that day like yesterday. I couldn't.
You in the band too?
No, but she was my roommate. So when I came home,
okay.
I couldn't even sit down. I had got hurt so bad, and she was like, why are you doing this? Get out. So yeah, I
Well, you
took
got hurt like somebody hurt you, or you got hurt like hurt yourself from
I'll say this, they have a lot of hazing in the band. And
Yeah,
I
fuck
didn't
that. I would have been out of there unless I was going on to be like John Legend or something like.
exactly.
Like I'm out.
What do I get from doing this? Absolutely not. You can have
Why?
this.
Why is it that everything on black campuses got it some type of process, no matter what it is?
Look, we already know. And then the next year I got in Phi Sig. Every year I had something else, AKA the next year. Every year I did something else where I was like, you know what's funny? After the band, I went to an interest meeting for Alpha Phi Omega because it was a community service thing. And they said every president in the United States had been at Alpha Phi Omega. And Raven, my roommate, we went together and we were sitting in there and they said, we have an 8 to 12 week process. I said, Raven, get your stuff. We out of here. Because
Wow.
I knew because I had been in the band what the word process even meant. I was like, I'm good. Thank you. I can do community service on my own. I don't need it.
Yeah.
So, but then I, of course, the next year joined Phi Sigma Phi and obviously was willing to do that. So I got over it after a while.
So when you got to campus, like, what goals did you have for yourself? Like, did you have things that you wanted to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, I was a poli-sci major, so I've always been really passionate about politics. I worked on the Hill almost every single year. So my goal was to run for student council and to work on the Hill and figure out what and go to law school. So I did everything I wanted to do. I was vice president of the College of Arts and Sciences. I was coordinator
Wow.
of
So you had a plan.
Oh yeah, I wasn't playing. I mean, I was in
Yeah.
student council in third grade. Like that was my thing all the way through my life.
Wow. Wow. So yeah, I find that I find that pretty cool because like when I went to Howard, my only plan, to be honest, my only plan was to graduate in 4 years. That was literally the only plan that I had. It wasn't to get a job after I graduate. It wasn't to join any organizations. It was to basically graduate with a B average. Because I knew if I got B's, my mom wasn't going to trip. I knew if 4 years, I didn't want to be the person that dropped out of school. That was literally my only plan. When I do these interviews with high profile people like yourself, it's crazy that like having these goals at such a young age. Like, where did that come from? Was that from your parents? Like, what did they do
I was
to
about to
make
say,
you?
you can't live in my house and have bees. I just happen to be at my parents' house right now. My dad, boy, if you got a B minus, my dad would be like, this is basically a C, which is basically an F. You failed. You gave away points. Why were you giving away points? So
Wow.
yeah, you had to. And my both of my parents are doctors, and they were intense. I just grew up in a very intense household, and they didn't. A was the minimum, and law school for them was like. They were like, why are you not going to medical school? Why would you go to law school?
Yeah, lawyers don't make no money.
Yeah, why? My mom's a dentist, my dad's a pediatrician, and they were like, those are the options, figure out what kind of surgeon you might want to be. So law was a stretch for them. They weren't feeling it at all. So, and politics, my dad was like, what is political science? What does that even mean?
Wow.
So yeah, I grew up in an intense household. They don't even care about student council. They think that's a waste.
Man, but they got to be proud now, though.
People always say that, like, when I got appointed to work for the Obama administration, they're like, I bet your parents are just super proud. I think my dad was like, well, that sounds like a temporary job. When he ain't president, he ain't gonna have that job. When I passed the bar, I always tell this story. When I passed the bar, I called my house, and my dad answered the phone, and I said, Dad, I passed the bar. He said, oh, that's amazing. What was your score, though? Did you get a perfect score? Who did you get the highest score? That's
Wow,
what
really?
my house is like.
Man, that's tough. So, what did that do for you? I mean, psychologically, is that because my mom is an entrepreneur,
Right.
so a lot of stuff. Like I remember, because I taught for 7 years before I started my own business, and it was like, why would you be a teacher? They don't make any money. You know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
like, damn, I thought this was. I'm a productive citizen though. Like I'm not out on the corner. I'm not perfect. For you, did that affect you in any way? Kind of having that bar always being raised, just when you thought that, you know, you made it, kind of seeking that type of approval? Because it's pros and cons to it. The pro obviously is that you always motivated, you push. The con is sometimes it could kind of put an unnecessary strain on the relationship, and it can cause anxiety. Did you ever go through any of that?
Honestly, we've been talking about this a lot. I'm about to get married in a couple of weeks, and we're talking about a family.
Oh, yeah, you're about to get married?
Yeah, and we've been saying, like, that I don't, when I was a kid, I thought that what they did was over the top. And I thought, like, why are they always pushing me? Why is it never enough? That feeling of not ever feeling like you're enough. But now that I'm older, and the check comes every 2 weeks, and I'm appointed to work for a president and a governor at 35, I feel like there is a level of structure and discipline that kids need to succeed. And I think I'm as successful as I am at this point in my life because my parents pushed me. Because I skipped kindergarten because I could read full books and they was teaching the ABCs. Like, my parents have always been pushing me, but I think it's why I am who I am. So I mean, when we're talking about getting married and starting a family, we've been talking about balance, doing that, but not doing too much, letting people have their own desires and what they wanted to do. My parents weren't really 100% behind law and politics, but I still did it.
It's one thing to, like you said, you're 35 and you've had these 2 appointments. It's one thing, when you're trying to get to a position, it's a level of stress there, but sometimes that real stress comes in when you get that position and you like, damn, I got to maintain this status. I can't take no backward steps. Like, I done did Phi Sig, I done did, AKA, I done did, the ball that you were like, you just got appointed to, what was it called again?
The Cannabis Regulation Oversight?
No, the women's thing. The
links. I just
right. You in the links. So like you come, your peers are starting to recognize you. Like, man, you a level of distinction. And sometimes you look at yourself like, yo, I'm just Danielle. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I'm no different from anybody else. And how do you manage the stress of maintaining and enhancing, the brand that you created for yourself?
I think you got to do it for you. You have to figure out what your purpose is and why you do something. Like, when I took that job at a nonprofit, everybody told me, don't do that. You are going to spend your life begging for money. It's going to be unstable. That is not a look. And I did it anyway because my heart was moving me to be in Inglewood, to come to Chicago, where I'm from. People complain about violence in Chicago and they ain't doing nothing. So if I want to move home, when people say, like, why y'all not making noise when people get shot in the neighborhood? No, I am out here making noise. I'm working every day so that our people can get jobs. That's why they out there, because they don't have no jobs. So I feel like you ground yourself by making your own purpose, making your own plan, and doing it, executing it. And when you can see also the fruits of your labor, that pushes you to keep going. Like, when I can see that somebody's leaving, going home, and getting a job, when they come in the door and they're like, Miss Perry, I got in my own apartment. My first time, my name's on my apartment. You can't tell me that you're not going to go out and I'm not going to call Josh Mercer and say, can I get some money from your business? Why am I doing this? For that person. Yeah. So they can have their apartment. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm going to do this so that somebody can open a cannabis business and these neighborhoods can change. And we push ourselves. I think Howard taught me that when you push yourself for something more than you'll do it. You'll keep pushing. You'll keep getting greater. And also, I think I have learned to not get down on myself when everything ain't perfect or when everything's not right. You can read this resume and it sounds like every day was right, but that's not true. So you got to give yourself some grace to get to your next step and to keep fighting.
On Howard's campus, what are some of the organizations that you belong to or positions that you held that really were a key part of your maturation and development as a leader?
So, I went to Howard and Howard Law. So I was there 7 years. I went straight through. I started law school at 21. So I was at Howard for a while. And so I was, like I said, Vice President of Arts and Sciences, coordinator of UGSA. And then in law school, I was GSA coordinator. So they have GSA, just like they have UGSA. I ran basically the student council for all the graduate schools. And it was kind of a strategy because I wanted to be graduate trustee. And so that second year of law school, meeting all these people from the medical school, the dental school.
Strategy. So let's stop right there, man, because you smart.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying? And you smart. So just doing this podcast, it just like having a plan. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you said you did that because you wanted to do this. That's so important, especially when you're young. Because I promise you, when I was at Howard, I had no plan. It was like, oh, Phi Sig, it's co-ed. That mean this girl, and I got a 3.0. I'm a join. You know what I'm saying? It was like Campus Pals. They look like they haven't. It was like no thought put into that. But then when I think about, okay, man, what all the people in Phi Sig are doing now, what Campus Pals, what it exposed me to, and things that I didn't really take advantage of. But everybody has a different path. But I just love hearing that you had a plan. And it wasn't until I started being in business for myself that I was forced to have a plan and have that structure. And I just bring that up because it's dope that you had that presence of mind at such an early age,
Yeah. But I mean, Howard is like that, though.
Crazy.
I mean, everybody's not lucky to be Josh the campus pal who can go join whatever you want. Some people, you got to have a strategy. And, I remember going to AKA's Rush, and there were 500 people there, 500 women, mostly just gorgeous. They lined up, and I'm like, yo, I'm not going to make it.
Really? Is that how you felt?
I mean, it was a lot of people there. And I just
how can you feel that way, that you're not going to make something, but you have all of this success?
Well, Josh, honestly, that's what I was going to say. I did all of that to make myself competitive for them to consider me. And I just kind of felt like, I wanted to, when I walked into that Rush, I was vice president of an entire college. I kind of felt I was in Phi Sig. I felt like I had like a 3.8. I just was trying to make myself competitive to be in the running. And I
competitive, really? I'm vice president of the school.
It's 500
GPA. Oh my God!
It was also like a little model call too. Like these girls in here in these 4-inch stilettos. One girl, I remember, I could see her right now. I don't even remember who it was. She had like a gold suit on. She was like a damn Emmy standing in the line, and I was like, I think I should go back home.
Damn.
So it's not just about your resume. I mean, I think they think about interpersonal stuff as well and who you are on campus. So, it's so funny because sometimes when people go to PWIs, they feel like, oh, y'all didn't pledge because there was so many of y'all. I'm like, you don't even know what we went through just to stand in the line. Like, for there to be 500 people at a Rush and they're only going to pick probably 50-some people, you have to be a star. You have to be somebody they're going to know or notice. You have to have made an impact in the community and at Howard. You can't just be Joe Schmo off the street whose auntie is the Delta or whatever, So, yeah, I was trying to be competitive. I ended up so when I said I had a strategy, I had a benefit in law school that those people who were running against me didn't have. I went to Howard undergrad. I seen what campaigns look like at Howard. When Kamala Harris says, if you can run a Howard campaign, you can run any campaign, it's not like the schools that they went to. So I knew enough to have a strategy. I knew enough that GSA was a collective of all the different grad schools, and that if I got in GSA, I would meet people at the dental school and the medical school. I knew the trustee was coming. I also knew that we used to think student council had real power, but I learned over time that the real power was the board of trustees. So that's why law school gave me a second chance. I was so pressed to be Houston president or UGSA coordinator in college. I ended up being UGSA coordinator. And then you get there and you realize I plan a luau and the Spring Fest. That's just a party planner, basically. So if I wanted real power, I learned that if you want to be able to make some change here at Howard, it's the board. So law school gave me a second chance to build a strategy to get there. So when I was GSA coordinator, when I ran that trustee race, I had a campaign manager at every grad school. a campaign manager in the medical school, the dental school, and I
Man,
built those friendships that year when I ran GSA. And
that is
so
amazing.
the dental school people would tell me, yo, boards are tomorrow. Come to the dental school at midnight, pass out Red Bulls or something. I'll be there at midnight. I mean, I campaigned my
Wow,
for that
that is
trustee.
amazing.
But that experience sitting on the board of trustees of Howard University, you can't buy an experience like that.
Tell me, what was that like? What was that like? You walk in and you see these icons, people we read about when we was kids, and you at the table, they know your name and they recognizing you. What was that like?
It was insane. Vernon Jordan was sat on my right. I always tell people, he sat on my right. Dick Parsons was on my left. Like, I was 21 when law school started. I was 22 or 23 at this point, sitting at a boardroom. You walk off the fourth floor, it's just a desk. And when they open the elevator, somebody's sitting there, they're like, good morning, Trustee Perry. I'm like, this is a Howard I've never seen. Amazing. And then they have like on the wall all the trustees in this big frame, and here's my picture and
Wow.
my name. And then they have you go in this boardroom. I never seen a table that big. And they give you a binder this big to read with all the finances and programs and stuff. You know, the stuff we did at Howard, people can't even imagine. To actually sit on a board. Howard's a corporation, TV station, radio station, hospital, 13 schools and colleges. I'm basically on the board of a corporation with big, huge, CEOs. And it changed my life. The exposure, what is it? 10 years later, I'm running a nonprofit. I know how to do a budget and look at a cash flow analysis because I did that for a corporation already. You know what I mean? I know how to raise money because I was a part of the capital gains for Howard. So yeah, it built me. It definitely. Also, I know how to be in a room with celebrities and big time people and ask for
So
what.
how do you go about being heard when you in a position like that? Some people might say, oh, that's just a position. It's not you're not a real trustee. You're a trustee, but it's like more symbolism than anything. How do you go about being heard in a room like that?
You know what? I had to push myself a little bit because people wouldn't imagine this from my resume and the stuff that I've done, but I'm more on the passive side than the aggressive side. So I used to be strategic about when I spoke, and I would push myself to speak. So I also did the homework. If they sent a binder home, I read it. And I would write in there when I was going to ask questions and what my questions would be. And I would bring in student experiences when I would make my comments, because that's what I had at the table they didn't have. These people, like I told you, they're staying at the Fairmont Hotel. A driver's picking them up, taking them to the fourth floor. They go into this boardroom, then they go home. They're not experienced. They're not walking the halls. They're not staying in the dorm. So I got to bring this to the table. That's what I have that they don't have. I'm going to bring my asset. I'm going to read, be ready for the conversation, and I'm going to plan my moments. I used to plan my moments when I was going to say something or when I would ask a question. I would speak up at pointed times. I wasn't in there rattling, but I picked my moments well. I also made a strategy around who I would talk to, like who I would befriend, what committees I would join. I would push myself every time we had a board meeting, which was only 4 or 5 times. I would make a list of who I wanted to talk to. I pushed myself to talk to people. And I would bring up things when I would talk to them or invite them to come to a school of like arts and sciences or a law school thing. So if Kasim Reed was going to be at the meeting, I would tell myself, okay, this week, Kasim Reed and this person and that person. Why? I'm going to talk about the dental school getting internet with this lady because she's the committee chair of infrastructure. I'm going to talk, and it's not always the thing in the meeting that you say, but the strategy and the cachet of being a trustee. When I call the dental school about the internet, I don't say I'm a student trustee. I said, this is Trustee Perry. I want to have a discussion with the president or this person about the internet. And I learned about halfway through, forget these meetings, use the trustee name to get some stuff done for the schools and colleges that need it outside of the meetings. And it worked. So
are you still able to leverage that even though you're not a current trustee? Is that still something that you, okay.
And they don't consider you a student trustee. They consider you a trustee. So if I call the secretary's office, so like they manage me as if I'm a trustee. They send me stuff from the Board of Trustees. You know, if I called and said, hey, I'm coming to graduation, can I get a ticket or something? You know, whatever it is, it's from the Board of Trustees at this point because I'm a trustee. They don't consider it you were a trustee. They consider it you are a trustee. And I also push myself to give like somebody who's on the Board of Trustees too. Like I can't give millions, but what I have, I push myself to give as much as I possibly can because, you know, I'm a representative of this school and I push myself really hard to be that.
Absolutely. I think, you know, one of the things I always gave 20% of the money that I made from homecoming. I would give it back to the school. And that benefited me because it got to a point where I was running, you know, that Instagram platform and you know, it's like 34,000 followers. And so the school started to take notice. And so I started to do all of these parties, you know, I did like 8 parties. So I had a lot of influence. So then the school actually called me in, and they was like, man, you know, we was actually thinking about suing you. And then they were like, but we looked into your background and we see how much you give to the school, and we, you know, and so they was like, well, you know, just keep doing what you're doing, basically. And they was like, you know, how can we work together and what? So it became a different type of dialogue. But for me, giving back to Howard was like, how would I not give back to a school that has given me, you know, so much? But, you know, that's a good point. You got to push yourself to do things, you know, and in business, it's about the win-win.
Yeah, when I was on the board, some of the things I noticed, one was that Howard had one of the lowest alumni give back percentages of all the Black colleges. And I was so surprised by that, but we have to change that. I remember being in a board meeting talking about finances.
Why is that though? Like, why is that I mean, the brand of Howard is so strong when you're talking about from the outside looking in, from looking at social media, looking at who gives to Howard, looking at the alumni who come out of Howard, where we're located. What can we do and this is one of the topics that we had when I met with the alumni relations department. They mentioned that too. They was like, you know, your donation is nice, but they was like, is it any way that you can break it into each person donating versus like you giving a donation, you know, basically because that goes into the rankings. But I was just so surprised at amount of alumni that don't give back.
So I think there are so many reasons for this. One of the reasons, I think, first, just stepping really far back, just we're Black. And I think we have always struggled in this country financially. When you get a little money, you still got to help your family, your cousin, this person. We haven't had wealth at that rate that other people have, where they could just say, oh, I give this much to the school or whatever else. I think also we traditionally give our money to the church. If you think about us as a monolith, giving to the school and stuff has not been something we traditionally do. And I think we have to teach people to be philanthropic because it's not natural. So I personally believe senior year, maybe even freshman year, every year you should give your graduation rate like $20.06 for me because I graduated 2006. $20.06 every year of your life, like dues. And it started freshman year or at least senior year. And if they start that and say, at the very least, every single person should give $20.06 to this school every year on your graduation date. And when you get to the point where you can give 206 cents, do that. When you can get to 2,000, do that. When you can get to 20,000, do that. And I think we have to create a culture of giving before they ever walk out of the school. And they need to also—
That's exactly what I said. That was exactly what I said. I was like, you can't ask for people. You got it. As soon as we get to school, just like you learning the alma mater and learning I'm so glad I went to Howard, it needs to be like everybody pull out $5. Like it needs to be like a part of, you know, what we do, like the culture, just like you said. So yeah, totally agree with that.
I always tell people, like, if I went to Chipotle after this little Zoom and I got my normal little bowl, add the guac because I can afford the $2-3 whatever, and a drink and whatever else, some chips, I'm gonna give them $20, and I'm not gonna make none of it. I think you can give Howard a Chipotle meal once a year.
Absolutely.
I look at it that way. And if you look at it that way, and then people will say, oh, somebody's unemployed and somebody's this, they'll pay to go to Josh's party.
Mm-hmm.
and they'll pay the youth whatever else. Like, I think you can give Chipotle money to Howard once a year. If you met a Howard person on the street, they would stand for Howard.
How did it feel when you became a AKA at Howard? I mean, did you know, being the strategist that you are, did you have a appreciation of Alpha Chapter at that age, or did that come later?
Yeah, a little bit. This sounds stupid now that I'm a lady of Alpha Chapter, Alpha Kappa, Alpha Sorority Incorporated. But when I was in high school, I thought the ultimate AKA was going to Spelman. So I was like, yo, you a Spelman AKA, like, that's the epitome. I didn't even get, my parents aren't Greek. I didn't even get Alpha and what that meant, I don't think. But by the time I got to Howard, it clicked. It clicked. Like, if they give me this chance, I'm going to go so hard. I'm going to be super AK. And I was, when I thought you might ask me, like, what was one of the craziest moments at Howard? And it would definitely be when I came out. When we walked out of the quad, my junior year, cross AKA, stood on that yard. It was like, to me, there was no strategy for that. There was no, like, if you do this right, you'll have a 3.8, you'll go to law school. Like, it was really more like somebody just blessed me with the opportunity to have this moment. And it was crazy. It was one of the best days of my life, honestly.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it was something I always wanted. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be.
How did it feel to come out? I mean, because when the Greeks come out, specifically AKAs and Deltas, it's like the campus is shut down. You know, like, it's literally thousands of women, all sizes, all shapes, all colors, all ages. Like, it's songs are said in unison. Like, it's literally like a different energy. I can only imagine what it feels like to be crossing over, in that type of, energy. Like, what was that like?
It joint's magical. it's like a feeling I can't even describe. It's crazy because now you turn on CNN and you look at pictures of Senator Harris on her day where she came out, like, with her head held high. That's nuts to me. Like, it's crazy. It's a feeling you cannot describe. And I was on the biggest line Howard had ever had, AKA or otherwise.
How many?
It was 137 of us.
Wow.
So it was just a big moment, period. So however many people would normally come out for a line, multiply that by 3, and everybody's screaming your name. It's a crazy feeling because you can't move. You stand there with your head up, Ivy's out, and people are like, I think that's Danielle. Oh my God, I see you, Danielle. People screaming your name, coming by. It's crazy. I called my parents the night before, and I told them about it. I told my dad. My dad is, like, super supportive of these type of things. My mom does not care about Greek life at all. And my dad was like, I wish I could be there. Good luck. I'll see the pictures. And we hung up. And that was it. And I remember being on the yard, and we in the line on the yard, and I could hear this voice, and I was like, that's my dad. My mom said he got up at like 4 a.m., had all his clothes on, and he said, I'm going to the airport. I got to see it for myself. Really? And I was like, what? So he basically was like, we going to D.C., let's go. So it was everybody, power people, my family. It was crazy.
Man, and that's dope. I mean, you do it junior year, and you got a whole nother year.
Yeah.
To kick it and take it all in. At what point did you become a member of Phi Sigma Pi?
Sophomore year. So I was president of Phi Sig senior year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was coordinator.
You just love all this responsibility. Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You was president. Oh, I could not be president of my peers. I'm sorry. That ruins all my fun.
Poor choices.
In college. Damn.
Yeah, I was president of Phi Sig senior year, had just crossed AK, and I was UGSA coordinator all senior year.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. How does it feel to have a position that you have and you see Kamala Harris went to Howard. She's an AKA. So now when you go into the office, they like, damn, Danielle went to Howard. Like, how does that feel? Because
Yeah.
now when I wear my Howard shirt, it's totally different. It's
No.
still, I always rocked Howard stuff, but I started this podcast. I've been repping Howard hard, and now it's like, damn, like what's on that campus? And I'm like, oh, Kamala Harris is just one person. You know what I'm saying? Like the list goes on. How does that feel? For you in the role that you have?
Yeah, I think I'm like you. I always wear a Howard t-shirt. I'm a Howard person to the death. Like, but now I'm wearing my Howard shirt like it's a campaign thing. I walk out the house with my Howard shirt, but for me, Kamala Harris, Senator Harris becoming a vice presidential candidate for me, just personally, it's like a dream come true. It's like seeing something you dream about in real life. I was a kid in high school who used to watch C-SPAN. I moved to DC to go to Howard because I was interested in politics and working on the Hill. And for me, there are not a lot of United States senators who are Black. We can literally count them on one hand. Doug Wilder was on the board when I was at Howard, first Black governor. So these things are, for me, magical that somebody who looks like me, who went to Howard, who is an AKA, who is a lawyer, did it, is making it and is doing this. She's a dream come true. She's proof to me that dreams can become real. And I more than donate. I pray for her. I pray that the impact that she can make is bigger than she could even dream, or you or I could even dream. And it's more, people say it's like representation politics. It's like, we got to get over seeing Black people in office and thinking that's enough for us. I think they don't even have a clue as to how hard this is to be a young person going into politics, working in government where nobody looks like you, and to think it's possible and that you can do it. She does make it seem possible, at least for me. And I think for a lot of other people too. So I'm proud. Pride is not the word I'm looking for. She really is a dream come true for me.
So, and I totally agree with that. So when you come out of Howard, you got a high GPA. The resume is nuts. You can go to Georgetown, I'm thinking at this point, right?
Right. I applied to 11 law schools. I had 7 scholarships. Only got rejected from 1 school. Howard was actually the only law school that did not offer me a scholarship that I was even considering. They waitlisted me, actually, Howard Law. I think they were trying to keep their numbers of Howard people down. So I had other really good options. I accepted a full ride to DePaul, decided to come back home. My parents moved all my stuff here. And a week before school started, Howard called me and said, we'll let you in. We won't give you any money, but we'll let you in. And my line sister, Erin, she lived here. She went to Northwestern Law School. She said, look, at the end of the day, I go to Northwestern Law. I worked at a law firm one summer. There was one person from Northwestern Law, one person from U of I, nobody from DePaul, but 2 people from Howard Law. She said, you go there, you're going to have way more opportunities. You need to give it a shot. And I moved my stuff back to DC, and I started Howard the next week.
Damn. So
and I don't know if I regret it, spending money to go to law school, but Howard definitely opened doors for me. I worked at a big law firm. Most of my friends who went to these other schools, they never worked at a law firm. It was really hard to get opportunities at those schools. But for Howard Law, every law firm is coming to Howard Law to look for you. So it was a good opportunity. I got to sit on the board. I got to do other stuff. And of course, I was happy to be in DC 3 more years.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So when you hear people, so what's your response to somebody that says the world isn't Black? Why would you go to a Black college? Why would I go to a PWI? The Howards of the world don't have the same resources. What's your response to that?
That's crazy. I think my friends who, I went to Homewood Flossmoor, it's pretty much all white. We were very few Black people, and I was one of the few people who did go to a Black college, and that was something people would say. You're not going to get a real life experience. Howard was more diverse than any of their schools ever were. I mean, yes, the people were they looked Black, or they had brown skin, but they were from all over the world. And, one of the benefits, I think, to going to Howard, and maybe a lot of the schools in DC is that DC is the classroom. And particularly if you're into business or law or politics, I mean, every year I either work for a lobbying firm or on the Hill, or I just had experiences and exposure to things in DC that I know other people didn't have, living in the middle of nowhere in Ohio or Illinois or wherever else. So Howard, if any place prepares you to be the best and to be a leader in this society and be Black, it's Howard University. And proof of that is all the people you see who are graduates of Howard making it happen in the world. So I think that's something somebody else told them that makes no sense to me. I think Howard is, to me, the epitome. There is no greater place in my mind. I tell Howard every day of my life because I think it was life-changing for me. And I'm big enough to say it was not my number one choice, but I thank God it's where I ended up because it did change my life.
Oh, man. So what advice do you have to the 17-year-old Danielle that's coming into Howard right now, who the strategist, the future czar, like what are you telling her right now when she comes to you and say, hey, I'm going to Howard, ... Off
the top of my head, I would say do it all, try it all, don't be scared, give it a shot. I did it all. I was willing to try. From the band to Phi Sig to whatever else, I went out there. I rushed for Phi Sig twice, you know, and also don't let one disappointment or one thing that doesn't happen.
Wow, you rushed for Phi Sig twice and then you became president.
Yep.
Well, Danielle, you've been a wonderful guest today. Thank you so much for taking time out. I know you're a busy woman, but I appreciate you coming on and just talking with me about the things you have going on and how you got here.
Thanks, Josh. Start the interview the minute we stop talking about cannabis, please. Thank you.
Okay, I got you.
Nah, plan. Thank you so much for including me. This was really cool. I appreciate the opportunity. I love Howard and love talking about it. And I'm honored that you even thought of me, and I appreciate the opportunity for real.
Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.